My dear friend, if you would recognize the movements of God in your life, you must first unlearn the folly of the world. Greatness, as the world defines it, is often a shadow, impressive in form yet hollow in substance. True greatness, however, is not measured by crowns or accolades, but by the unseen hand shaping the soul in silence and fire. Perhaps you have found yourself questioning the seasons of hardship, the doors that shut before you, the solitude that wraps around you like an unwelcome companion. You are not forgotten, nor are you lost. You are being prepared. And there are signs, though subtle, that whisper of this preparation. It is a strange thing that we, though longing for purpose, resist the very instruments that forge it. If you find yourself walking through the valley of trials, do not despair. A soul that will one day bear great light must first endure great refining. The fire that burns away impurity is the same fire that reveals gold. There are moments when contentment seems foreign, when the comforts of routine grow stale, and you sense a hunger for something beyond what you can see. This is not aimless dissatisfaction, it is a call upward. Do not mistake restlessness for rebellion. Often, it is the early tremor of transformation. Many of the greatest works begin in silence, and many of the greatest callings are prepared in solitude. If you have been set apart, if you find yourself walking a road few understand, it may be that you are not being cast away, but rather set aside for something greater. God removes distractions so that He may do a deeper work in you. If doors close where you expected them to open, if paths you once walked with certainty now seem foreign, do not curse the closed way. Often, we are too fond of our own maps, failing to see that the path we planned leads nowhere. Trust that the architect of your destiny knows which roads lead to purpose. With greatness comes not ease, but burden. If you find your heart weighed with the call to stand firm in integrity, to speak truth in the face of falsehood, or to bear the concerns of others, you are being prepared for leadership. It is an easy thing to live for oneself, it is a far greater thing to be entrusted with the welfare of others. You may wonder why, if preparation is at work, the process seems so slow. But would you trust a tree that grew overnight to stand against the storm? The strength to endure is not built in haste. God's timing is not our own, and yet it is perfect. So, take heart. If you find these signs in your life, know that you are not wandering without purpose, nor are you forgotten. You are being shaped for something beyond yourself. And when the time is right, when your soul has been fortified, you will step forward, not for your own glory, but for the work that has been set before you. Suffering has long been misunderstood, feared, and even resented. Yet, if one looks deeper, beyond the immediate sting of hardship, suffering is one of the greatest tools used to refine the soul. It is not merely an unfortunate reality of human existence, but a deliberate process, a necessary crucible through which character is shaped, faith is strengthened, and purpose is revealed. If one desires to be great in the sight of God, one must first learn to embrace suffering, not as an enemy, but as a teacher. There is a misconception that hardship is either punishment or evidence of divine neglect. Many, when faced with affliction, question their worth or assume they have fallen out of favor with God. Yet history and scripture are replete with examples of those who walked the path of suffering before stepping into their divine purpose. Joseph, sold into slavery and imprisoned unjustly, did not immediately rise to prominence but spent years in difficulty before becoming a ruler. Moses, destined to lead a nation, first endured exile and loneliness in the wilderness. Even David, anointed king, spent years fleeing for his life before ever wearing the crown. In each case, suffering was not a detour but the very road by which they were prepared for their calling. Pain, when rightly understood, becomes a tool of refinement. It removes that which is weak, selfish, and impure. It teaches patience, for no trial ends at our command. It cultivates wisdom, for those who suffer learn to see beyond the surface of things. It deepens compassion, for one who has walked through fire will not be indifferent to the pain of others. The soul that is never tested, never broken, never humbled by difficulty, remains fragile, unfit for the weight of true greatness. It is in suffering that one learns to trust beyond reason. When all visible evidence suggests that God is silent, when prayers seem unanswered, and when relief does not come, faith is tested in its purest form. Do you trust when there is no proof? Do you believe when the outcome is uncertain? This is the essence of divine refinement. It is one thing to trust when blessings abound, it is quite another to hold fast when everything is stripped away. Those who will one day stand firm must first learn to walk through darkness without wavering. One of the greatest dangers of ease and comfort is the illusion of self-sufficiency. When life is without struggle, when all goes according to plan, it is easy to forget that one is utterly dependent upon God. Yet, suffering has a way of stripping away pride and forcing one to acknowledge their own limitations. It is in moments of great weakness that one truly understands the necessity of divine strength. The refining fire of hardship reveals the soul's truest condition. It exposes where faith is shallow and where surrender is incomplete. Those who wish to be great in the sight of God must be willing to undergo this process, for only the soul that has been tested is fit to lead, to serve, and to carry the weight of divine responsibility. Many seek to escape suffering rather than embrace its lessons. The temptation is to look for shortcuts, to pray for immediate relief rather than transformation. Yet, those who are wise understand that every season of hardship has its appointed work. One cannot rush refinement. A piece of metal must remain in the fire long enough for its impurities to rise to the surface. A vessel must be shaped and molded before it can be filled. To be impatient in suffering is to forfeit the very growth that hardship is designed to produce. God does not waste pain. Every trial has a purpose, though that purpose may not always be immediately clear. The one who suffers today may not see the fruit of their endurance until years later. Yet, when the moment of calling arrives, they will find themselves equipped in ways they never imagined. The endurance built through suffering will sustain them in responsibility. The wisdom gained through hardship will guide them in leadership. The strength developed in silence will uphold them when the weight of their purpose becomes great. Those who wish to be used for something greater must first accept the refining fire. Suffering is not meaningless. It is not cruel. It is not wasted. It is, in fact, the greatest evidence that one is being prepared for something beyond what they can presently see. Restlessness is often misunderstood. Many view it as discontentment, impatience, or an inability to appreciate the present. Yet, there exists a deeper kind of restlessness, one not born of mere dissatisfaction, but of an awakening. It is the stirring of the soul that suggests one was made for more than their current circumstances. It is the quiet but persistent whisper that refuses to be silenced, the sense that one has outgrown the space they are in, the feeling that life as it stands is too small to contain what has been placed within. This kind of restlessness is not a defect, nor is it a sign of ingratitude. It is a divine signal, a prompting that one is meant for something beyond what they have known. A bird does not remain content in the nest when it was made to fly. A river does not stay still when it was meant to flow. So too, a person destined for greater things cannot remain comfortable in mediocrity. The discomfort of restlessness is not punishment, it is preparation. It is the soul's way of saying, there is more. There comes a time in every person's life when they realize that what once satisfied them no longer does. The job they once celebrated now feels empty. The routine they once embraced now feels monotonous. The dreams that once excited them now seem too small. This is not a sign of failure but of growth. A child may delight in small victories, but an adult seeks greater challenges. Likewise, those called to greater things will eventually find themselves unable to settle for less. Restlessness, in this sense, is a gift. It prevents a person from staying where they do not belong. It pushes them forward when comfort would have kept them stagnant. Many try to quiet this feeling, believing that contentment means accepting things as they are. They attempt to suppress their longing for something more, fearing that such desires are selfish or misguided. But to ignore divine restlessness is to reject the very means by which God leads a person into their calling. When the heart begins to stir, when the dissatisfaction with the ordinary becomes too great to ignore, it is not a mistake. It is an invitation to seek, to question, to step forward into the unknown. There is a pattern in the lives of those who are called to something great. They do not begin in certainty but in longing. Moses, though raised in Pharaoh's palace, could not shake his burden for his people. Nehemiah, though secure in his position as cupbearer, could not ignore the suffering of Jerusalem. The prophets, the apostles, the leaders of faith, all experienced a moment when their lives as they were became insufficient. They were not given a clear map, nor were they told every step of their journey in advance. They were given a stirring, a deep and holy dissatisfaction that refused to be ignored. Some may mistake this restlessness for mere ambition, but there is a difference. Ambition seeks personal gain, status, and success. Divine restlessness seeks purpose, service, and fulfillment beyond the self. The one who is merely ambitious chases after titles and recognition. The one who is being prepared for something greater seeks impact and meaning. This is why divine restlessness often comes with an increased awareness of need, an urgency to do something significant, and a frustration with anything that feels shallow or trivial. This feeling is not always comfortable. It may bring frustration, confusion, and even fear. It challenges a person to step beyond what is familiar, to let go of what is safe, and to trust that there is something more even when the details are unclear. Many resist this process, clinging to what they know rather than embracing the unknown. But one cannot walk into a greater purpose while holding on to lesser things. Restlessness is a call to movement, and movement requires leaving something behind. The timing of this stirring is often unexpected. One may be in a season of stability, thinking they have found their place, only to suddenly feel a shift in their spirit. What once felt like home now feels temporary. What once seemed certain now feels insufficient. This is not a sign of failure but of transition. A door that is meant to be walked through will eventually become too small to remain behind. The restless heart is not a burden, it is a sign that one is being called forward. To ignore this restlessness is to risk settling for less than what one was created for. It is to remain in a place that no longer fits, to resist growth out of fear of uncertainty. But those who embrace it, who lean into the discomfort rather than away from it, will find that their restlessness was never random. It was always leading them somewhere greater. It was not a mistake, it was the first sign of calling. Isolation is a strange and often uncomfortable experience. Many perceive it as abandonment, as though they have been cast aside or forgotten. Yet, history and scripture reveal a different truth. Those whom God intends to use greatly are often first set apart. This isolation is not a punishment but a preparation, not rejection but refinement. Before elevation comes separation, and before a person is placed on a grand stage, they must first be shaped in solitude. There is something about isolation that reveals the true nature of a person. When the noise of the crowd is gone, when the affirmations of others fade, and when one is left alone with their thoughts and their God, the heart is laid bare. It is in these quiet moments that weaknesses are exposed, strengths are developed, and purpose is clarified. One who cannot endure solitude cannot endure greatness, for the weight of calling requires an inner fortitude that is often forged in seasons of being alone. Many of the greatest figures in scripture and history experienced a period of isolation before stepping into their purpose. Moses spent years in the wilderness tending sheep before he was called to lead a nation. David, though anointed as king, was driven into caves before he could ever sit on the throne. Joseph, destined for greatness, endured years in a foreign land, separated from his family, falsely accused, and forgotten. Even Jesus himself withdrew into the wilderness before beginning his public ministry. These seasons of isolation were not without purpose, they were essential in shaping the individuals for what lay ahead. There is a temptation to view isolation as wasted time, to believe that nothing is happening because there is no visible progress. The world glorifies activity, busyness, and recognition, yet some of the most significant work takes place in hidden places. A tree does not bear fruit in its early years because it is first establishing deep roots. A building does not rise until its foundation is secured. A soul that will one day carry great responsibility must first be prepared in silence. Isolation also serves to remove distractions. When a person is constantly surrounded by the opinions and expectations of others, it becomes difficult to hear the voice of God clearly. There are times when solitude is necessary simply to recalibrate, to strip away the noise, and to refocus on what truly matters. Many resist this process, filling their isolation with entertainment, busyness, or anything that numbs the discomfort of being alone. Yet, those who embrace it find that in the absence of distraction, they gain clarity, wisdom, and a deeper sense of direction. It is in isolation that character is refined. Without an audience, without applause, without recognition, a person is tested in their integrity. Will they remain faithful when no one is watching? Will they hold on to their purpose even when it feels like nothing is happening? The private battles fought in solitude determine the strength of the person who will one day stand in public. The person who compromises in private will falter in leadership, but the one who is strengthened in secret will stand firm when the weight of responsibility comes. Isolation also teaches dependence on God. When all else is stripped away, when the comforts of familiarity are removed, a person is left with nothing but their faith. It is here that trust is developed, not in theory but in practice. It is easy to have faith when life is comfortable, but true faith is forged in the moments when answers do not come easily, when the path is uncertain, and when God seems silent. Those who are being prepared for something great must learn to walk through these seasons without losing heart. One of the most challenging aspects of isolation is that it often feels indefinite. There is rarely a clear timeline for when it will end. This uncertainty is part of the refining process, for patience and endurance are required qualities of those who will carry great responsibility. Many grow weary in the waiting, assuming that because they cannot see progress, none is being made. Yet, the greatest transformations often occur beneath the surface, unseen but essential. Isolation is not meant to last forever. It is a season, a necessary process before the next step. When the time is right, the one who has been prepared in secret will be revealed. The person who has been strengthened in solitude will be ready for the task ahead. What felt like a time of emptiness will be understood as a time of equipping. The period of being hidden will prove to have been the foundation upon which elevation is built. Life rarely unfolds according to human expectation. Plans carefully made often unravel, doors once open suddenly close, and what seemed like a clear path forward becomes a road filled with uncertainty. It is in these moments that one is tempted to question, to wonder if they have taken a wrong step or if they have somehow fallen out of favor. Yet, what seems like a detour is often a divine redirection. The unexpected shifts in life are not evidence of failure but of providence. A person may set their sights on a particular goal, believing it to be the right destination, only to find the way blocked. They may knock on a door with full confidence, only to watch it remain shut. This can be frustrating, especially when all signs seem to point toward a certain outcome. However, divine guidance is not always revealed in the granting of desires, but often in their denial. A closed door is not always rejection, sometimes it is protection. Sometimes, it is a redirection toward something far greater than what one originally sought. The human mind is limited, seeing only a fraction of the picture. People planned based on what they know, but God orchestrates according to what He sees, which is infinitely beyond human comprehension. What appears to be a setback may, in reality, be the necessary step toward a far better destination. A dream that does not come to pass may be a mercy rather than a misfortune. A failure may not be an end, but rather the beginning of something greater than what was originally imagined. Redirections often come at inconvenient times. They disrupt comfort, challenge expectations, and force a person to adapt in ways they did not anticipate. A stable job is lost, a relationship ends, a long-anticipated opportunity vanishes. In these moments, panic and confusion set in. The mind races to make sense of why things did not go as planned. Yet, hindsight often reveals what is invisible in the moment. What was once perceived as a loss was, in fact, a divine setup for something better. Many resist redirection because it disrupts their control. Humans crave certainty, predictability, and familiarity. When life takes an unexpected turn, fear creeps in. There is a temptation to fight against the change, to force things back into alignment with original expectations. But struggling against divine redirection only leads to frustration. The one who clings too tightly to their own plans may miss the greater opportunity unfolding before them. Surrendering to the unexpected allows one to move forward in faith rather than remain stuck in disappointment. Throughout history, great figures have experienced divine redirection. Joseph envisioned a future of leadership but found himself sold into slavery. What seemed like a cruel deviation was, in reality, a necessary path to his ultimate purpose. Moses, raised in Pharaoh's palace, never expected to spend years in the wilderness before leading Israel. Paul, once a persecutor of Christians, never imagined he would be redirected to become one of Christianity's greatest apostles. None of these individuals could have foreseen the path ahead, but each found that what appeared to be an obstacle was, in fact, a carefully designed route toward destiny. Divine redirections are often accompanied by a sense of disorientation. The road that once seemed clear is no longer visible, and the new path is not always immediately illuminated. It is in these moments that faith is tested. Will a person trust in what they cannot yet see? Will they believe that even the disruptions are working toward a greater purpose? Those who embrace redirection with trust rather than resistance find themselves positioned for something greater than what they originally envisioned. Redirections also serve as a means of refinement. When a person's plans are interrupted, they are forced to confront their reliance on their own understanding. They must learn to walk by faith rather than by sight. This process is not always comfortable, but it is necessary. It humbles the heart, deepens trust, and strengthens character. A person who has never faced redirection may remain fragile, easily discouraged when things do not go their way. But the one who has learned to embrace divine redirections with faith and patience becomes resilient, prepared for the unexpected turns of life. One of the greatest mistakes a person can make is to view redirection as failure. Just because something does not go as planned does not mean it was wrong. Some of the best things in life come through the most unexpected means. A person may lose what they thought they needed only to discover that it was never meant for them. A dream may fade only to be replaced with something far greater. When life does not go as expected, it is not a sign of abandonment but of careful orchestration. Every redirection carries purpose. No change is wasted, no shift is accidental. Even when the path is unclear, even when confusion sets in, there is always a design at work. The road ahead may not always make sense, but it is leading somewhere meaningful. Those who trust in divine redirections, rather than resisting them, will find themselves not lost, but precisely where they were meant to be.